Hey everyone, it's Keri Murphy with Inspired Living TV, and I am in beautiful Arizona. I'm on my way to the Shadows Foundation charity event, and when I came in on the plane, I had the most amazing limo driver come pick me up. Do I know who it is? I bet you do. Let me introduce you to one of the NFL's all-time best kickers, Nick Lowery. Hello, Nick.
Hello.
I'm a lucky girl. I have quite the driver today.
Happy to be here.
So it's a little dark in here, but Nick, you have such an amazing story. So without crashing, tell us how...
Don't you hate it on like movies where there's a scene in the car and the person's talking like this and you want them to look back?
Yeah, you're like, are you going to kill everyone in the car?
So I'm going to probably be looking for
Okay, please do, please do. And I want to hear about your story because many people know, you know, again, you're one of the best kickers in NFL history. You played with the Kansas City Chiefs as well as many other teams, but it took you a while to get there, right? It wasn't something that you just one day said, I want to play for the NFL, and it showed up for you.
No, and the best part about it is the journey of making it made me so much better and also helped me appreciate it so much better too. Because I was not ready at 22, actually was not ready for prime time, and my first game was on prime time with the New England Patriots in 1978 against the Oakland Raiders, and it was a very intense game. A guy named Daryl Stingley had been paralyzed a month before against the same Oakland Raiders. He was still in the hospital in Oakland, and the whole team saw him the day before the game, and now they were returning where their warrior, their star, had been wounded mortally, and if you will, and it's a very emotional game. It was on Sunday night primetime with Dandy Don Meredith, Howard Cosell, and it was and Frank Gifford, and it was my first step in understanding what it would take to make it in the NFL, which was to overcome this insecurity that I had to be something other than who I already was.
Oh.
That I was like, I know this is grass in the Oakland Coliseum, but this is NFL grass. I know this is oxygen I'm breathing, but it's NFL oxygen. And I know this is Monday Night Football, and I'm scared. You know what?
Right.
So, and literally the game had to go down to the final minute. We were down. It was tied 14-all, and we were on their 24-yard line, and it was third down. And if they missed on third down, I would be running out to kick my first field goal attempt in my NFL career to win the game with
wow, no pressure.
Like 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
And back then, the cameras would follow you on the sidelines, and my friends told me afterwards, Howard Cosell, who was, you know, the legend, really, one of the great dramatizers in sports history, was saying, there goes the tall, angular one from Dartmouth College. Dome Lowery, didn't know my name was really Nick. Has never tried a field goal before. Can he handle the pressure?
Oh, dun dun dun.
And I was like, no! And the camera was following me, and I remember trying to look cool. You know,
of course.
trying to look,
right.
You know, poised. And the phrase, they stick up your, forgive me for the crude analogy, but I was walking with a rather stiff body language, and the light on the camera goes on right when they're showing you to, you know, 35, 40 million people.
Sure.
And luckily Steve Grogan, who was a rather charismatic, long-time 15-year NFL player, quarterback from Kansas State, kind of a cowboy personality, he rolled out on third down and ran all the way down to the 2-yard line. So instead of having to kick a 42-yard field goal, which is a pretty long field goal, to win the game, I was now getting ready for either an extra point length field goal or an actual extra point. So suddenly I went from to, oh yeah,
I can do this.
I can handle this. And we won that game. We won the next week. I had one 45-yard field goal that missed by a very long way. And they cut me, and I cried, and I felt frustrated and cheated, and hadn't really had a chance to show much. But what pattern was emerging was that they're cutting me, but it's their judgment, not mine. I know what I am capable of, and this unique pressure-packed situation of being a kicker where it's 1.3 seconds. By the way, everybody, Keri, every time I look over, she's looking forward because she's worried that I'm taking my half the road.
I am very nervous, actually.
I'm going through the mountains here. You might want to pan just to show.
This is where
like,
we are right now.
This is the sort of the southern tip of the range that leads 2 hours north to the Grand Canyon.
So when I'm looking straight ahead, it's because I want to make it there and I want to do more interviews for Inspired Living TV. Okay, so Nick, great story. I want to hear about what you had to, how many times did you try out?
So that process revealed itself through 8 teams and 11 times trying out. And what I began to realize was I just had to keep putting myself out there, because the only way I was going to get used to it was by getting out there. So I would showed up at Tampa Bay, showed up in Philadelphia, and they kicked me out of the stadium. And then I got tryouts elsewhere, and I started to get people to call me, the Baltimore Colts. And each time, that first year, I was not quite ready, but by the next year, people were beginning to call me, and I had 3 tryouts in 2 weeks with the Cincinnati Bengals and then the Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins, I played in the game, kicked a field goal, and it was my old hometown team, the Redskins. And so I was very excited, but they cut me because their kicker, Mark Mosley, who was one of the best kickers in the NFL, just needed rest on his leg. Well, the following Friday, they're playing that night. It's the 4th and last preseason game. And I had already worked out and kicked at St. Albans School in Washington, D.C. And somebody ran down from the tennis courts next to the St. Albans football field and said, Bobby Beathard, the general manager, really legendary general manager for the Redskins, is on the phone. So I ran up to the tennis shop about 100 yards away, and he said, we're going to sign you tonight. Would you like to play?
You're like, no thanks.
Okay. So I drove home, and I got to the stadium literally an hour and a half before the game, and the pregame warm-up starts in half an hour. So I walk in the locker room, and Joe Lavender, who was the defensive back for the Redskins, sees me, hadn't seen me all week, goes, man, this guy's got it down. We have to practice all week. He just shows up for the game. And played in that game, made a field goal, and they cut me again. But now the New Orleans Saints flew me in. I kicked really well, and now I was out kicking other people that were trying out alongside me that I hadn't been perhaps as well the year before. So I was noticing I was getting physically, but most importantly probably mentally tougher and more ready and more confident, more at ease.
But Nick, where did that come from? I mean, I think that the determination and the wherewithal to go through that over and over again, was that something that was just, you felt like innate within you? Did it grow over time?
I think certainly the determination and the clarity that great things can happen if you make a friend of failure, if you keep putting yourself out there, and even if you get 100 failures, you're going to make it. And looking at it as an inevitability that required that attitude with focus, commitment, hard work, and noticing improvement, noticing getting better.
Right. And that is a key component, right? Is the determination not only to keep trying, but to do what you need to do to develop the skill set to go out there and get different results, right?
Yes, and I think, as we've talked about already, so many people stop just short, and sometimes you're ready, but the people that are wanting you for, let's say, a movie or a television thing or a sports team, they aren't ready. Or
That's
it's
right.
just not the right match.
Over and over again.
It's not right.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not ready yet. And sometimes you aren't ready, and then it's not going to happen either.
Right.
But
sometimes it's not about you. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not about you. You just keep putting your best effort forward and try to put yourself in that learning place, and don't succumb to any desire to question your commitment or your work ethic or your value, but keep working at it, and eventually the right situation will take place. And literally, at the end of my second year, I had gone back up to the New York Jets where I'd started in training camp as an undrafted rookie, and won the tryouts. And they said, yeah, you outkicked all 4 other kickers, but we had you before, so we're going to try this other kicker. And that was sort of almost the final straw, and I got a job. I decided it was time to get serious, and I got a job working, believe it or not, for the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee, Commerce, Science, and Transportation for Senator Robert Packwood of your home state, Oregon.
Go Oregon.
On aviation deregulation, and then in 1980, the Olympic boycotts. That actually, it's kind of an interesting historical parallel. President Carter thought we should boycott the Olympics because in Russia, because the Russians had invaded Afghanistan. Hello.
Hello.
And anyway, but I worked on aviation deregulation issues, aviation safety, and then out of the blue, in early January, I got a call from a guy named Jim Schaaf. And this is really a great story because we really don't know how close we might be to making it, and so many people are that close and stop. And
because you were actually considering
I had a job
getting a real quote job, right?
This was the permanent job.
Okay.
I was the only non-lawyer. There were 11 lawyers and myself, and I got this call from Jim Schaaf. He said I would have called earlier, but I had back surgery. But Marv Levy was a special teams coach for George Allen for the Redskins, and he was a really excellent coach who appreciates the unique challenges of the kicking game and how important a good kicker is to a team, and he values what you could do. And I said, thanks, but I've got this great job in the Senate, and I hung up. And when I hung up, another really important factor is I realized I made a mistake.
Correct.
But I had someone to talk to. I had a mentor that I knew would always bring out my best, help me make sure and frame it in terms of what was my higher, if you will, purpose. And he said, Nick, you'll always wonder if you can't find out what they had to offer. And I hadn't waited to hear what they had to offer.
So let me ask you really quick before you move forward. How important has a mentor been in your life?
I think mentors are really important. I think it's a reflection of being vulnerable and understanding that the humility to know that you can always learn more, and also to acknowledge that most of the great relationships and the great growth in life comes through a mentoring relationship, an elder, if you will, which is something that's been sustained in my work with Native Americans. So Dick Johnson calls me up. I called him up, who had been my mentor for since high school, and he said, you need to find him. Well, I didn't know how to spell his name. I'd never met him before, didn't have his number, and I just guessed that his name was spelled James Schaaf, S-C-H-A-A-F, which happened to be right. There were 2 James Schaafs in the directory.
Wow.
In Kansas City. Called the first one, he wasn't there, and then I thought, wait, he had surgery. So I asked the operator if there was a hospital with the first 3 numbers of that second number. And she said, I can't do, oh wait, try this number. He wasn't there, and I said, well, if he had back surgery, where would he be? And for whatever reason, they put me in touch with Research Hospital in Kansas City, Missouri, and Jim Schaaf was there.
And, way to be resourceful.
And an hour later, after hanging up on this stranger, I'm locked into this wonderful conversation with him, and he was so impressed that I'd been able to find him.
So what did you say when you called him back? What did you say?
I just said, I realized I didn't have, find out what you had to offer, and I wanted to learn more. And so we had a great conversation, and they flew me out a week later, and they offered me a $2,500 bonus,
wow.
which is like this today in today's money, but it was just enough to make me feel like they're willing to bring me out in May, not just for training camp in late July, but almost 3 months earlier. I think I'm going to do this. So I alerted the staff there at the Senate Commerce Committee I was going to be leaving May 1st. I worked on aviation seat safety for the remaining few months, and on May 1st I got the Volkswagen silver Scirocco with the spoiler.
Ooh,
that I had
fancy.
1977 Volkswagen Scirocco, which had great tunes, and drove out to Kansas City, and it was so good because it gave me that chance to see these guys every day, to sort of vet myself of those insecurities, and also begin weightlifting and getting used to the whole environment, feeling sort of much more comfortable.
And so, part of the team, right?
Part of the team.
Yeah.
And then in training camp, I had to go against not just any kicker, but Jan Stenerud, who was the only remaining member of the Super Bowl champion Chiefs, was sort of the godfather to a lot of players. And he was then, I think, 36, 37, still in the prime of his career, and would go on to be the only kicker in the NFL Hall of Fame. Wow. So the thing that I think sustains the lesson is that by keeping on going and working, not only did I make it, I was able to go from being cut and not really ready to beating out the greatest kicker in the history of the game at that point.
Wow.
And then breaking every single one of his records by quite a bit.
That's amazing. That is such a great story, Nick. And how long did you play for?
Well, I played 14 years for the Chiefs, and I'm still their all-time leading scorer. I'm very proud of that. And then I played 3 years with the Jets. So I had that 1 year with the Patriots, and then I had 17 years after that.
Okay, so in 18 years total, and you almost gave up. You almost went back to, real life. But you also, not many people know maybe that you graduated from Dartmouth and you went to Harvard as well, or did you graduate? But you went to both.
Well, I went to Harvard afterwards, and I almost actually played again in the 2000 Super Bowl. I had not actually kicked for almost 2 years, but I'd been training, and I just knew that somehow my training would prepare me. And Dick Vermeil from the Rams, the legendary coach, flew me in. I won the tryout against 3 other 25-year-olds.
And at that time you were?
I was 44. And I hadn't kicked in 2 years, almost 2 years.
That's incredible. Ooh. It's all right, everyone. We're safe. We're good. And this guy kind of soft.
This guy needs a little bit of
caressing.
Torque in his engine. Anyway, and almost made it. And they actually went with their kicker who had a torn meniscus in the Super Bowl. But I almost played in the Super Bowl, and but I felt that after that it felt good. I could say at 44 I was good enough to play for most teams, and went up to read poetry at Harvard, and I was invited to apply while I was there to the Kennedy School of Government, and was accepted and spent the next 2 years studying there, got my master's, and did a fellowship in leadership and what's called nation building for Native youth. And
that's what you're doing now. You're really passionate about going out and speaking to people now.
I'm very passionate about the lessons that I learned, not only about leadership but also about performance in the NFL. And
hey Nick, what are maybe for the people that are watching this that kind of feel like, okay, well, what can I do? What are some things that Nick can tell me to do that would help propel me in any areas of life? Do you have any words of wisdom or 3 things that you really feel like people need to do or remember?
Absolutely. I think number 1, the most important thing is that we get really clear that any one thing, I mean, with the exception of being 4'6" and trying to be a center in the NBA, but literally we can do any one thing we're really committed to by listening to ourselves and also to listening and asking ourselves what it would be my highest purpose.
Yeah.
That brings out our best, brings out qualities that we have that we sometimes leave latent or asleep, and know that the path will be full of lessons, but to adapt the attitude that everything is on the way, not in the way. That everything that happens will teach you if you look for it, and if you stick with it, it will be an important chapter and reference to make you consistent. One of the other things about success is you can make it, and history is littered with people that have, one-time successes. They have the #1 hit in music, and then they
one-hit wonder.
One-hit wonder. And there's a very different notion of success when you go from the stairway just to make it to the sustaining at that high level, that when people no longer consider it a surprise, but just expect you to perform at that high level. And that's where looking at your life as a process of constant growth and renewal and adversity, and looking at the hardships and the challenges truly, not just because someone said it in a book, but because truly it is the way that you grow and expand yourself, expand not only your mind and heart, but your soul. And when your soul's involved too, your spirit, then there's a higher quality that you feel that inspires you, and once again continues to puts you on a cycle of growth that's at a whole new level. And that's where you become not only an athlete, but hopefully a person who can use those lessons for life itself. And that's what I try to do now. Is I think while sports was great, to learn how to perform in front of 80,000 people, millions on television, is great. But there are other lessons in this world that we need to apply and help others learn, because most people aren't going to be playing football. They can still, you know, have lives where they make the world a better place. We need lots more people like that.
Yes, we do. And I love how you said on the way, not in the way. I love that. I'm stealing it, taking it. Okay. So that was the first. So what's the second thing that someone can do? So we talked about spirituality.
Well, I think persistence, spirituality, in the sense of not some vague spirituality, but constantly when you're going through a period when your ego's talking, maybe you're sad, you're hurt, you've been rejected, or you're feeling less than, or you're comparing yourself with others, you ask yourself and ask God to help you through those moments and inform your choices and your perceptions, your awareness, to pull out the things that really bring out your best.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is the angels in your life. So the first one, if you will, is attitude, and that notion of
you can do anything with it.
You can do anything with focus. The second thing is the angels, the things in life that may already be around you, but so many people don't notice them because they're not looking for them. And then I like to use another A, which is art. That the analogy, if you will, of Michelangelo, that when he chose the sculpture for the David that became the quintessence of the Renaissance and the perfection of the human form and its movement, which was unique to the Renaissance, the suggestion of movement and the wisdom of portraying the human body in this really three-dimensional form. That piece of marble was rejected, or had been rejected, by several others, and yet Michelangelo saw the perfection within it. And to me, that's such a great analogy that most of the art in our lives comes from bringing out what we think might even be flaws, and with commitment and with the notion that you are serving a higher purpose, it transforms into something truly beautiful.
And you, Mr. Lowery, are, you know, a very beautiful soul. I've really enjoyed my time getting to know you, and I look forward to this great event that we're heading to. And thank you for sharing your words of wisdom. They're amazing.
You want to end the interview because you're worried about this?
I am. I'm worried about the road. So everyone, we're going to see more of Nick a little bit later. Shine on.